Hey everyone, it's Devin Francis, also known as Dr. Blackard.
And it is me, also known as myself.
My hair is really short now compared to last time. This is
Oh, thank God, it was so bad.
It was so good. It was so glorious.
No, it was not good.
This is episode 224 of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. What are we talking about today, Victoria?
We're going to talk about the OAC episodes of...
September, October.
Okay. One of my guesses was October. So 18-Yard Line and Showdown in San Poco.
Yes. Yeah, we said we would do this before we started the new album, and then we waited a bit. New album is almost entirely out now. Whoopsie-doopsie, but we'll do this.
Since the last time we recorded, a lot of bad things happened. So I feel like that's a valid excuse. Yeah, there have been many times we were going to record since then, but bad things kept happening, so yeah.
So, let's start then. Wait, there's something. Oh, yes. For those who have not heard, Earl Bowen passed away last week or the week before. So,
I think it was last week. So I think you texted me that when I was in Kelowna.
The magnificent voice of the Blackard twins is sadly no longer with us.
Who's gonna
living
melt
legend
butter in your ears
chocolate.
now? Who's gonna melt chocolate in your ears now?
Someone will take up that mantle.
Isn't that how, like, the king died in Hamlet? Molten chocolate was
Scar
down his
threw
ears.
him into the wildebeests. I assume it's the same in the play. So, first episode. Episode 942, The 18-Yard Line, written by Kathy Buchanan. What happens?
So, I might need some help with the guy's name. But this is another football episode.
Uh-huh.
So I think this is about the episode where we start running into, among the current episodes, Eugene being mentioned a lot and not appearing.
Yes, I believe you're correct.
Yeah.
Which is why Jay is assistant coaching.
Yes. So in this episode, we have Coach Calhoun, and Jay, assistant coach. I really like Jay in this episode. He was fun in this episode. You didn't like him in this one?
No, I was saying assistant coaching, like...
Oh, yeah. Assistant coaching, as much as Jay can assistant coach. And so we have... Is it Trey or Cooper in this one?
It's Cooper. Cooper's the older one.
Cooper, okay. So we have
Cooper and Buck and Austin McKinley.
Buck. And what was the other guy's name?
Austin McKinley.
Austin McKinley goes to a different school, like kind of a preppy, I don't know, Hope's Peak vibe, where everyone's better than you.
Yeah, the Richie private school.
Yeah, Richie Rich. Macaulay Culkin place. So it basically opens with the Odyssey AIOO football team doing a car wash, and then Austin like pulls in his Porsche or whatever car he has, and he's just like, "Wash my Porsche, you commoners!" And they're not happy about that, but they're trying to do a fundraiser. They need to do their job, and Buck is like, "Simmer down, Cooper. We got to get this done." And so then they keep working on it, and Austin's just like, "Oh, I'll have such a fun time kicking your little peasant shins when we do our next game. We're so much richer and more talented than you freaks."
Yeah.
And so that doesn't go over well with Cooper. But Buck is like, "Chillax, let's just get someone else to wash the car." And he's like, "Good idea, otherwise I'll key it." Or he doesn't say that, but that's kind of his
He gets
voice.
legit mad, yeah.
Yeah. And so then we go to the football game that they're doing, and Cooper tackles Austin in the game, and Austin actually gets like severely injured. Like, he gets a spinal injury, so he has to be carried off, and at first no one picks up on that, and Cooper's like, oh, he's fine. And then it's like, oh, he's not fine. He's super not fine. So Cooper feels like garbage. He feels real bad. And he keeps on blaming himself. And then they find out that Austin will probably never play again. And I think he
Or
had like a
walk.
scholarship.
Yeah,
He'll never play football again. He'll never walk again, potentially, also.
potentially, yes.
And I think he said something about like being scouted or something like that. So like he's really, really mad.
Yeah.
And Cooper feels awful, and he's just like, I'm never going to play football again, in solidarity, but also because I feel like trash. And everyone's just like, Cooper, you didn't know this was going to happen. Like, you can't take all the blame on yourself for this. And he's just like, watch me do it anyway.
It's like sometimes in football, people just get paralyzed, and we have to live with that. That is the cost of doing sports. I'm like,
Football
okay.
is just bad. I mean, there are lots of sports injuries you can get, but like, and I get people like sports. You can put that on a shirt. Cool by me. But like, I don't know. There are some things where I'm like, is it worth it?
Statistically, football is
gonna get, like,
very dangerous.
a really bad injury. Like, I never played many sports recreationally on any teams. The only one I ever did was soccer and volleyball. Yeah, I was bad at both of those. But like, my best friend did do rugby when she was younger for a little bit, and I don't know, I kind of watched from a distance when I did go watch. I was like, this is terrifying. Anyway, so then Cooper's like, I should go to the hospital and apologize to Austin. And then some of my favorite scenes happen. Basically, he walks in and Austin is like, get out of here. I don't want to see you. He gets like real mad. And then what are they called?
His physical therapist.
The physical therapist. Isn't there another name too?
Yeah. What else could you say?
Anyway.
I don't know.
So his physio person comes in to kind of like tell Cooper off for going in there without permission and like aggravating him and stuff. And she's like, if you want to go in there, you have to talk to me, and you have to get me to talk to him because he doesn't want to talk to you, and you have to get like his permission. And he's already like going through a lot of stuff right now without the added stress of you just suddenly coming in here and like making his stress levels go up a lot, and it's not good for him to see you right now. And then Cooper's like, okay, I'll figure something out. Can you talk to him for me? And she's just like, I'll see what I can do. And then he leaves. He talks to a bunch of people about how he feels bad. And then he basically comes to the realization that he just can't fix everything on his own, but there are like some things he can try and do to just generally help with these kinds of situations. So he like goes back and talks to the lady again, and he's like, I get that I probably won't get the chance to talk to Austin, and he doesn't want to talk to me ever again, but are there any like other people in similar situations in the hospital I can just like lend a helping hand to in some way? Like, can I volunteer here? And she's like, I will see about that. And if it's cool with Austin, I'll get you to go talk to him.
And
so then
Cooper recognizes the difference between like
helping for your own like
yeah,
selfish
being
reasons,
like, yeah,
and helping
I'm doing this because I want to
selflessly.
make myself feel better versus I'm helping because I want people to be helped.
Yeah. So he talks to Austin, and Austin's like, well, lucky for you, peasant, even though I don't like you, we have like a really good school that takes care of us at my school, and they'll probably get me like this really great machine to like help me walk again, because this machine might possibly aid me in getting back on my movement and feeling and stuff, according to the physio person. And so then Austin's like, oh, that's cool. And then he
It's
ends up
immediately obvious that it's like, oh, he's the reason you have that, but he's not going to say anything.
Yeah. So he got the machine from Cooper using the fundraising money, which it might have been because I was listening to this episode at work, but I didn't pick up on that until they said it. I think I was so focused on everything else, I forgot about the fundraising
Uh-huh.
stuff that it even happened at the beginning.
Well, I wasn't thinking about that specifically, but just in general, he was like, "Hey, I got this thing. Like, see, I told you." And the way Cooper was, you could tell he was just like holding back, wanting to say something,
He
and
was just like, "Yep, good for you." And then the physio lady was like, "You didn't tell him?" And he was just like, "Nah, that's fine." And then he goes back to the team and he's just like, "Good news. Austin liked the thing we got." And everyone's like, "Yay, too bad we can't, I don't know, buy the platinum cup or
a
whatever
weight
they were
room,
going to
a
do with the
training room,
money." Yeah. I forgot
or
what
platinum cup,
the hockey thing is called.
the Stanley Cup.
The Stanley Cup. My brain was like the Piston Cup.
Dude, what in this cup?
Anyway, that's the episode. I really liked this episode. I thought it was really good. I
The
especially...
stakes rocketed a lot higher, faster than I was
Yes.
expecting.
I was expecting this to be just like a really like petty kind of like vengeance storyline or something like that, but then immediately it was just like, this child is paralyzed, and I was like, oh my goodness. I really like the physio lady in this episode. She was great. I want her to be in more stuff.
So, at the start of the episode, just like you said last time, Eugene is mentioned in that they say that he's in England for a month for work, and so that's why he's not in the episode. So it's just Coach Calhoun covering everything, and so Jay's like, "Put me in, Coach. I'm ready." Obviously, this was done to give him a bit of space as a character while affairs are sorted. So they're like, "Okay, he's gone for a while, so we don't have to like,
Give
keep
Eugene space.
keep
I thought you meant Jay for a second.
no, keep. You're like he's there for a month, so we don't have to. We have a little bit of time without having to give an explanation constantly as much
Oh, sorry to interrupt. Have you heard anything just
about what
like
they're planning.
outside the show? Yeah.
No,
Okay. Because I know for a fact you'll hear something before I will.
possibly. Anyways, obviously, like it was longer term, but this is the same way that he was moved out of the picture during Novacom by working on some project and like, oh, he's super busy with his thing at the college, so we're not going to see him for a while.
Which is like literally what they said in another episode.
And then later, he and Katrina left in Plan B. Also, I found out that I think this was at an unrelated, different point, but I learned from Dave Griffin's blog like 2 posts ago that at one point Will either went on strike or threatened to go on strike from the show in order to make sure that the child actors had tutors on set while they were recording episodes.
That's good.
Which is super cool from Will. So Cooper gets like legit mad at the car wash. Austin really gets under his skin. And then we come to the football game. I'm like, okay, Cooper is gonna get mad and he is gonna like injure Austin, and then he's gonna feel bad because he's like, okay, but it wasn't an accident. Like I didn't mean to hurt him that bad, but I did mean to hurt him. Like I wanted it to hurt. And that's what's going to happen. So because sports game, Bob is the color commentator. He is literally being Bob Booth there in the booth. And 18-yard line collision between Austin and Cooper. Austin goes down, and it's like, okay, maybe he's faking it. Maybe he's hurt. And it's like, okay, he's probably hurt.
I did wonder at one point if he was faking it, and he definitely was not.
He was super not doing it. And I was
he was super not faking it to a point where I was just like, oh, this is very traumatizing for Cooper.
It was like, boy, this is the time when it's a really good thing that you have a renowned neurosurgeon literally on the field while you're playing football to look at injuries. So, also, I can't believe that Jay's Smos Miracle Water brand is still around, because I figured by now he would have been shut down either by the FDA or the FCC or both.
Oh, that reminded me of a thing in, so Tommy and it went to New York to do some things, and one of the things was, like, start a business, and he basically got all these water bottles and then emptied them, and then he went to like this gross looking pond, like fountain thing, and he filled it up with water, and then he just like put paper around
Gamer Boy Pond Water.
the sides, and it was just like Tommy Unit's special juice is what he wrote on it, and he was like holding him up, and he held them up to people as they walked by, and he was like, "Do you want my special juice water?" The water was literally like green. And he was just like, "It literally doesn't cost any money." He was like, "It's free." And then people were like, "What's in this?" He's like, Don't actually drink it. Please don't actually drink it. It was from the fountain." But that is literally what I pictured when Jay was like selling his Miracle brand water.
Okay, so coming up on Austin's injury, obviously with the title of the episode, as they're like running towards the line, and they're like, "It's at 30 yards, 25 yards, 20 yards." I know, it's like, oh no, boy, I think maybe something bad is going to happen in another 2 yards.
It was like the BDG Halo thing. And
like, John.
Reach is my home. I hope nothing bad happens to it.
It's never going to fall.
John.
They're counting down the yards, and I was like, okay, Cooper's going to tackle Austin. He's going to hurt him really bad, and it's probably not on purpose, but he does have enough conscious intent that he wanted him to stay down longer than a normal tackle. And it was like, maybe Austin isn't actually going to hurt that bad, but he's going to take advantage of it to fake an injury, and Cooper's going to feel super bad because he was like, oh man, I wanted it to hurt.
Story trope where someone's like pretending to be injured to gain like favors, or they're only injured for like a little bit, and then they keep on pretending.
And then he went down. I was like, don't think he's faking that
doesn't happen. He's busted up.
I think this one's real. I knew. So he goes down. Cooper feels terrible, obviously, because it's not just like, oh, he broke something. He literally is paralyzed. And when he goes to the hospital, he's like, I have to apologize. I have to make it right, which is, it's a fair sentiment, and it is not easy to own up to facing someone when you know they're not going to be happy. I knew Austin was going to take it badly. I didn't think that even the doctor would chew him out so hard for trying to go in there.
No, and I really liked that.
I did too.
I liked how far they went with the physio stuff, because it felt like so realistic.
I felt like she was really going to be like, talking about like, you had good intentions and it's a nice thought, but it's not a good thing right now. She was like, you do not go in there without my permission. He is in an agitated state, and that is not appropriate without like clearing things. You shouldn't even.
She's such a good character. She was so
even
cool.
Be allowed to be back here. Like you just snuck in because of your dad. Like, you shouldn't even be allowed to be here without having.
I also liked when
sign off.
Cooper first asked Dr. Calhoun about what was going on, and he was just like, I straight up can't tell you. Yeah. I'm not allowed talking about my patients. And Cooper was just like, oh, it's bad. He's your patient. Oh no, he needs surgery.
Yeah, your dad is not a normal doctor, so if he's your patient, that is baseline means things were very bad. I really like
that was good for me on two levels. The level of just like, I'm not allowed telling you what's going on because it's not your business, even though you are associated. Like, I can't tell you. And then also the level of just like, I know what you do, and I know the fact that it is confidential means I made a big mistake.
I really like stories where people are forced to like reconcile their own motives. Like, what does it mean for your guilt versus trying to like actually fix the root of the issue instead of just making yourself feel better without addressing the root cause? I really like it when stories do that.
I think that's something I could stand to work on.
The thing that came to my mind first was the first episode of the last season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where Rosa was calling out Jake for being so focused on trying to make people think that he was a good cop that he wasn't focused on actually helping anyone meaningfully. He's like, but I'm one of the good ones. It's like, you're trying so hard to push that narrative that you're not actually helping anyone and just trying to make yourself feel better. And so I'm really glad that they're like, look, it's not bad to help people. Like, it's not inherently bad if you're helping people and part of your motivation is that it makes you feel good to help people. That's not like an inherently terrible thing. But recognize that ultimately what you want to be doing is helping people, and it's good if you feel good as a side effect. Your goal is not to alleviate your own personal guilt regardless of what the actual impact is on other people's lives, because then you're not actually accomplishing anything. So that was really good. The video documentary, the team was doing the car wash. I assume they were just washing the cars of employees because they were using like little like watering cans and hoses and like water balloons and water guns and stuff. It was
I would kindly ask people not to use a water balloon on my car. Like, not only would that leave
plastic bits,
really weird marks when it dries, if there's like any plastic bits that just like get in places they shouldn't, that's not good.
Yeah, it was mostly for show. I'm like, I assume these are just
I believe that.
employees.
I'm just saying, like, as an idea.
Yes, exactly. That's why I'm like, I assume these aren't real people where they're like, hey, we're doing a free car wash, and then they're like, here, well, I have a toy watering can, let them slowly dripping over your windshield. Like,
it makes someone so mad. That sounds like an Eric Andre sketch.
there was this preacher who gave a speech. He was born without arms or legs, and he was talking about dealing with difficult circumstances and, making the most of things, obviously relevant to the episode.
That sounds like the story they told in the missionary testimony episode.
And then at the end of the car wash thing, they had like I think it was like one of the interns like holding on to the hood of the car, and the car started driving away, and they're like, and I was like, don't think that's a stunt person. I don't think this is. They were like properly approved and insured to
probably not
do that. There wasn't even like a disclaimer at the bottom, like this is a trained professional, or even don't do this at home or anything.
They were from that one Easter church.
Yeah, Church of the Rock. That's what I was thinking of. I was like, I don't think legally that's well, okay. So that's what was going on there. Yes, I was a fan of the episode.
This episode had really good writing. I was pleasantly surprised by the direction this episode took. Jay had a couple like legit funny lines that did make me smile fondly. And honestly, it was some much needed levity in this episode. I really like this one.
It is funny, like you were talking about earlier, Cooper was like, I'm quitting the team, and it's not. I liked how it's funny because it felt like everyone was treating it like this is such a knee-jerk reaction. Like, you don't need to quit the team. Like, you're just doing this because you feel so terrible and guilt. It's not your fault. And I'm like, I feel like it is, like, I'm not saying he has to quit the team. I don't think it's an unreasonable response to be like, look, someone has had a life-altering injury because of me, and I don't, blame, I don't bear the blame of that in like a malicious sense. I mean, a little bit, but not fully. But it's also not unreasonable to recognize like, hey, this is something that could happen again, or it's something that could happen to me. So maybe I don't want to keep playing football. Is a reasonable response. So everyone's like, this is you've gone too far, Cooper. Like you're being consumed by the guilt, and this isn't you.
I mean, if he said the reasons you just said, it'd be understandable, but that wasn't like the stuff on his mind.
Yes, that's fair. That is fair. I just thought it was funny that everyone's like, this cannot stand. There was no rational reason that he could decide to quit. And he did decide to go back, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But like you said, I was like, it is also perfectly reasonable because football is a very dangerous sport.
Football's terrifying.
And those kinds of injuries do happen. It wasn't too long ago that I was learning more about like the medical history of is it like repetitive head trauma, whatever the acronym is, that happens, mostly associated with football, of like the injuries that accrue if you have repeated concussions from playing football that historically in famous players have caused them to like their whole personality change. A number of like murder suicides like committed by players because like their brain chemistry drastically changed because they got hit too many times while playing. And it's like,
I feel like I need a sign that just says like this character needs therapy or something like that I can just lift up because I say it so often. I do think that would be like, if I was personally Cooper, I would be crazy traumatized by the fact,
Yeah,
like the
that's
knowledge
why I
that
was
I
like, it's
caused something like
super.
that to another person. Like I would need to talk to a professional
That's why
about
I
it,
was
most
like,
likely.
it is a perfectly rational response to not want to play anymore, because he now has a traumatic association with the game. And I mean, that's why he
Yeah.
didn't quit immediately. He was playing, but he couldn't run past the 18-yard line because that's where it happened. He was literally being triggered by the trauma that happened to him while he was playing and that he inflicted on someone else. It's perfectly reasonable. Doesn't mean that it's not also reasonable for him to work through it and to be able to overcome it. But it's certainly not like an irrational, like, snap emotional response to be like, no, I don't want to play this anymore because of what's happened. So it could have gone either way. There's nothing wrong with him choosing to keep on playing, but it just felt odd to me that everyone was unanimously like, I can't believe you would do this. Like, you're making the wrong decision. And I'm like, I mean, it's a perfectly legitimate decision if that's what he actually wants to do.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe Eugene would have said something if he was there.
Eugene's like, I'm a little familiar with trauma.
Eugene's like, I've had my share of trauma throughout my
I also
life.
like too how Joseph talked about his own like backstory with his like episode and stuff like that in A Sun Scorched Land, to talk about basically the survivor's guilt that he carried with him coming out of that and how that impacted him, because it's a very similar thing to what Cooper's going through. And so that is, I was really glad that they called back to Joseph's first episode and talked about his past
I
there.
forgot that that was Joseph, in all honesty.
Yeah, I always think about that. Like, that was the very first time he appeared, was the episode, and they made
I
us.
think that's why I forgot it was
Yeah.
him.
So calling back to his story where it's like, yeah, I got through and made that whole journey, but, there was my Moses friend with me who, like, died on the hill, like, the final stretch as we were looking over it and stuff.
And that, son, is why I'm getting you therapy.
And thinking about all of the other people who didn't survive, all of those attacks when I did and stuff like that, and how that impacted him and stuff. And so I was really glad they were able to, like, make that connection. Kind of the same way that Eugene doesn't when he's talking to Buck about adoption stuff.
Yeah. Except for, to be fair, in the last
Yeah.
episode, he did do that.
Yeah.
Also, if I remember correctly, a lot of animals died, or at least some, in A Sun Scorched Land. I'm pretty sure.
Well, there was the goat, like, that was his family.
Yeah, there was the goat. And can I just say, hearing a goat die must be terrifying, like a terrifying auditory experience. Because, like, goats are already so loud. Like, imagine hearing a goat, like, death scream.
I mean, it wasn't in the episode, if that's what you're saying. Like, he wasn't around
No,
for that.
I know it wasn't in
you're
the
just
episode,
saying in
but I'm
general.
saying, like, just conceptually.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so.
I mean, I don't know. There's just something, like, I think it's because I just finished reading some of the Discworld books, like the Tiffany Aching ones, and there's, like, different types of, like, magic users in it. And one of them, her title was, like, Pig Borer. And it's like...
Pig boar or pig borer?
Pig borer. Like when you're bored, but you bore pigs. So basically, because they don't have, like, any narcoleptics.
I thought you meant, like, bore a hole through something. Like,
that's what I thought it meant at first. And I also wondered if it meant, like, bearer, but spelled weird. Like, she helps pigs give birth, but she basically, like, talks to pigs
in the past
until they
tense
fall
for some
asleep.
reason. Like, I bore the pigs. Yeah.
Yeah. She talks to pigs until they fall asleep, so they can be, like, put down peacefully without, like, being, like, crazy loud or anything like that. But every single time they mentioned it, they talked about, like, how much they would scream, and I was like, this is haunting, Terry Pratchett. Thank you for, like, regularly putting this image in my brain. Anyway, that was very off base. I'm gonna give this episode a 5. I really enjoyed it. I thought the writing was super tight, and that new lady, was super cool. I want her to appear again. She probably won't,
Yeah,
but
I
she was
really
the
liked that
best.
she gave like a tough love, like realistic response that was not coddling to Cooper at all.
Yeah,
Because she was like, my concern here is my patient and not you, kid, who is the reason that my patient is in here. And I really appreciated that.
I just really liked how they were like, Cooper, you're valid for feeling the way you do up to a certain extent, but this also isn't 100% about you now. So like
Yeah,
that
your
was
feelings are
nice.
valid, but that doesn't mean the actions that you're taking based on those feelings are justified.
Like your feelings are valid, but we're not going to put them over the person who needs like a bunch of medical
Uh,
assistance at the moment, which is just it's good. It felt like having a real doctor reprimand me. It felt so legit.
yeah, I really like that. I was like, oh, she's actually like,
I was like, "Oh, we're doing this."
she is
Oh, I was like
upset
sitting
and
there in my
stern
chair. I
about
was like,
it. And
"Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry."
yeah, I was impressed with that. I liked the weight of the episode. I liked the fact that even though Cooper, was involved and wants to know about the incident, and Joseph is his dad, that he is still like, no, I can't HIPAA violate to you about what's going on beyond what I'm allowed to share publicly, which is always nice when doctors and media aren't like, oh yeah, I can tell you, it's fine.
Yeah,
Just don't know, it's fine, it's fine.
I feel like Odyssey's actually pretty good about that.
Um,
Because, like, the only times, because there have been so many times I can think of, like, at least with Lily
mhm.
and Joseph, where it's like, I'm sorry, we can't tell you anything, or we have to wait till, like, the family members show up, like in Mortal Coil. I'm pretty sure that happens. And just, like, if you're close enough, we can tell you, or that kind of thing. So,
um, yeah, I obviously, like I said, I like the distinction between like, are you trying to alleviate your own guilt, or are you trying to actually help Austin and help other people? And that they were able to be like, okay, maybe you won't be able to help Austin, but you can still put your efforts into something productive that can help people who are in this situation, and kind of work towards helping people there in general. That's not just kind of, doing it to alleviate your own feelings. Um, Jay was there, and that was fun.
Jay was there. Why is Jay driving the bus all of a sudden?
It was good. I approved the episode. I also say 5 out of 5.
Nice.
All right, shall we move on then?
Yes.
All right, now we'll talk about Showdown in San Poco. So, episode 943, written by Phil Lawler, Showdown in San Poco.
San Poco.
What happens in this episode?
San Poco. So this episode is a Wilson backstory episode.
Uh-huh.
So it starts with Camila. No,
Lucia.
not Lucia. Why did I say Camila? It's been forever since Camilla's been in an episode.
It's been a while, yeah.
It starts with Lucia, and she's basically talking about like these boxes that she's gonna send out to
Magi
places.
boxes.
Yeah, Magi boxes for like gifts for kids.
Yeah.
They're a little bit like
Operation Christmas Child, but
yeah,
not,
Operation
but
Christmas
not
Child.
Christmassy, I think.
Yeah, just for like general,
Uh-huh.
basically. And how like she's been involved in doing and working on Magi boxes for like a while. And then she mentions she mentions the town that brings up the story?
Well, she's like, hey, what are you doing there, Wilson? Because he's gardening. And she was like, doesn't the church have a gardener? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, the church has a hired gardener? Okay, whatever.
Yeah. So the
But
church
he's
has
like,
a garden.
he's like, I've got a jar of dirt. I've got a jar of dirt.
He has some dirt that's from a church. And so then he starts telling her about the church and why the dirt is important and why he's like mixing it into the dirt of the church's garden that they have in Odyssey. And so he basically tells the story about how back when he was doing his like motorcycle ministry back when he was cool.
Yeah.
Before he settled down at any church.
I think it was relatively recently, like in the last decade, maybe.
Yeah. I did re-listen.
I mean, his hair has more color definitely in the art than it does now, so it's not like it was super recent.
But it's still the same VA and not like a younger.
Yeah, no, it's not young Whit Wilson.
No, I'm not saying young Whit Wilson, but he had a younger VA around like Triangle era.
Yeah.
In Charlotte, which I did re-listen to Charlotte recently. I did it around the same time that I listened to all of these episodes. Because I was like, I want to hear more Young Wilson content again, and I also re-listened to his first episode,
the science fair one.
Yeah, and I think those were the only ones really. But oh yeah, and I listened to the girls ain't S-word episode of Odyssey, which, can I just say, wasn't as bad upon rewatch as we make it out to be.
So funny.
On re-listen. It's just gotten to the point where it's fun to make fun of the episode.
It's literally like the Gravity Falls episode, where they're like, here's the secret history we can't let anyone know about.
Yeah.
Because the men will burn down the town if they find out that a girl did a thing.
What's the guy's name? Something Tremblay.
Yeah, Quentin Tremblay.
Quentin Tremblay.
Yeah, the mayor being like, yeah, I know about it, but here's the thing. We have to lie about it. No one can know. You have to keep the dark secret that women did a thing.
I still think it's valid that, because it was olden times, that Whit could have told people and should have told people, like, as soon as the event was over.
I agree, yes.
And not immediately before the events.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Wilson went to this town because he had like a pen pal who was interested in like ministry and becoming a pastor and that kind of thing. And so then
I think he was a pastor, but
he
didn't have like a proper church.
Yeah, he was interested in like starting up a church and wanted to meet Wilson. So they've been talking for a while. And so then while coming into the area, Wilson sees like these other bikers and they're like trading compliments about each other's motorcycles. And then they're like, oh, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I'm here to see my friend. I don't remember the guy's name. Alejandro,
yeah.
Alejandro. He's like, I'm here to see my friend Alejandro. And then this other guy what was the mean guy's name? Joaquin's just like, oh, Alejandro, that loser.
He started singing the Lady Gaga song about him.
He's just like, oh, he sucks. Don't talk to him. He's like the worst person ever and no one likes him and he has cooties. And Wilson's just like, oh, I mean, like, he sounded nice in his letter. And they're just like, letters are deceptive, my friend. And then they motorcycle away. And then Wilson meets Alejandro, who is a ray of sunshine with a bit of clouds. We'll talk about that later. Oh, I'm so poetic. And so he basically tells Alejandro about the guy who was not great to him. And he's just like, oh yes, Joaquin, I know of him, looks dramatically in the distance. We'll also get to that later. Put a pin in that. And so then they're talking about like church stuff, and it's really nice to see each other, and they're like getting along great, going around ministering to people. And then they're like, hey, Alejandro's like, I have this place which would be like perfect piece of land that I really want to get, and I want to start up a church there, but I'm too nervous about it. I want you to go with me. And Wilson's like, okay. And then they talk to the lady and they basically like give her the whole pitch. Have I missed anything up until this point?
I don't think so. Just the fact that they're like, Joaquin is like, he runs the local gang, like, and he like racketeers like and terrorizes everyone and stuff. Yeah.
Alejandro's like, don't trust Joaquin, he's real sketch. And Wilson's like, gotcha. So then they go talk to this lady and they give her the pitch for the church. And they're like, how much money can we give you? And they like give an offer, and then she's just like, no, bad offer. And then
I refuse.
I refuse to take your offer. And they're like, we don't have more money than that. We can try and get more money. She's like, no, I refuse because I'll give it to you for free. And then I was like,
Okay.
lady, you could have said that first. And so then they're like gonna come back to do all the paperwork and stuff. So they go back the next day, and the lady's just like, no, I don't, I'm good. I don't want to do it anymore. We can't do it. And they're like, why? And then, Joaquin comes out of nowhere, and he's like, because she sold it to me. And they're
She's
like, Joaquin.
it's fine. I'm normal. As you see, like, this sniper dot trained on her forehead.
Yeah, basically. The most stressed normal person I've ever heard.
She was so normal.
She was so normal about it. You could only hear a little bit of tremoring in her voice. And so then, Joaquin is like, I bought the land, so you can never use it. Haha, screw you. And Alejandro's just like, you're the worst person I know. And then they, like, argue and stuff, and then they both go their separate ways. And
he steals Wilson's bike also.
He also, Alejandro steals Wilson's bike. And Wilson's like, hey, my bike.
Stop. No, stop, don't.
Hey, stop, no, wait, come back. And then Wilson's just like, can someone please tell me what's happening? You are all so weird. So then the lady is basically like, okay, so first off, Alejandro and Joaquin are brothers.
Hermanos.
This really do be like a telenovela.
Yeah.
And when they were younger, Alejandro is the older brother. So when they were when they were younger, they got these magi boxes.
They were orphans. They lived at the orphanage.
They lived at the orphanage.
Over the hill.
What?
Over the hill.
Yeah.
From the farmhouse.
Yeah.
And she was like, I knew them. I've known both of them since they were little boys. They were so good.
They were little boys. They were so sweet. They were little angels. And Wilson's like, oh, what happened? And that's what he says verbatim. And then she's like, well, they got like little Bibles in their magi boxes. And they were both like, oh, God's great. Heck yeah. And then also, I think Joaquin got a harmonica? Was that what it was?
Yes.
Yeah. And then there was like a raid or something like that by the cartel.
They stole all of the children.
And they took Joaquin, and Alejandro hid. And
Joaquin was like, let me into your hiding spot.
Yeah.
And Alejandro was like, no.
I read... Sorry, I was just thinking, like, several months ago, I read a book where something very similar to this happened, but the kid died who didn't get into the hiding spot. And was also the younger child.
I was like, this is so messed up, where it's like, no, I like, granted there wasn't space for both of you, but he was literally like, let me in, and they like grab him, take him away, and you just watch his brother be there because he didn't let him in. I was like,
and then he like anime anti-hero style like raised up the ranks of the drug cartel, and now he's in charge of it, but it's like darkened his soul, and he's like so angsty, and he also does a lot of bad stuff now that's just like not fun or dramatic, or like I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's a drug cartel. There's not good stuff going on.
And he's also like, turn yourself over, or I'm gonna steal all of the children again from the town, just like I was stolen. I was like, okay, so because it's like, oh, he's doing bad stuff, but it's like, oh, it's because he was hurt by his brother, and now he wants to hurt his brother. And so it's really a personal vendetta. But then he's also like, I'm willing to kidnap all of these children and continue on the exact same cycle of revenge and kidnapping and everything. I'm full, like, there is no like, this is just to hurt you. Like, I'm full on evil in order to hurt you.
Hurt people. And
I was gonna say that.
I'm pretty sure I thought that at some point and like said it to myself when I first listened to the episode.
Wait, did they say that in the episode?
No, but I said it while listening to the episode.
Okay.
I also said it yesterday about everything else that's been going on with life lately. And so there's this person who comes in. Is it another character who they're like, Joaquin? Not Joaquin. They're like, Alejandro has a gun.
Yeah.
And he has like Wilson's motorcycle and he's going to go shoot Joaquin. So Joaquin stops being evil, traumatized man.
And is dead instead.
And is dead instead of those things. So the other people aren't dead. And then Wilson's like, holy crap, we need to go stop him. So they like go and they get to the place where like both the brothers are and they're like, Joaquin is like in full showdown mode. He's just like, we challenge each other.
Did you have flashbacks to Waylaid in this whole scene? Because
I think I did.
As Wilson was trying to talk Alejandro down and be like, no, don't shoot him. Like, it's not worth it.
Too really past that.
All I could think of was him pulling out a water gun. That's all I could think of.
I'm gonna be honest.
Because I was like,
I'm
he
always
definitely
thinking
doesn't
about
have
that
a gun.
scene in Waylaid. I'm always in a perpetual state of thinking about that scene in Waylaid and Connie getting pushed on Richard and Richard going, Connie, get off me! And just all the chaos that ensues. And yeah.
Man, I want the
Me
next Blacker
pointing
novel.
to one of my many bro TPs in Odyssey that Connie's in, and it's just a picture of just like motion blur because she's been thrown at Richard and he's just like actively
and then crashed
falling
through
back.
wooden crates.
Yeah, and
painfully.
I'm like, look at them. They're friends. They love hanging out. Look at one being thrown into the other one. Anyway, so then Alejandro was just like, I should have given you this a long time ago. And then Joaquin's like, let me have it. And then he pulls out the harmonica that he had as a kid because I guess like he dropped it or something like that when he got, I was going to say child snatched. There's a word for
When he
that.
got taken.
It's called kidnapped.
When he got Liam Neeson taken.
When he got Liam Neeson taken. When he got taken to starring Liam Nielsen.
Nielsen, yeah.
Yeah. And
when he got
anyway,
Leslie Nielsen, yeah.
He got Leslie Nielsen. And so then, you threw me off my groove. I don't even say I lost my train of thought anymore. I just say you threw me off my groove, which I think is so much
I'm sorry,
better.
you've thrown Victoria off a groove.
I'm sorry.
I'm sure you have a great personality.
So they basically like have a moment, a one-sided moment, where Alejandro's like, I should have been there for you. I should have like tried to do something more than I did. And I'm just like, there's not much you could have done, my guy. But I get the sentiment. It was just
I mean, they definitely gave the sense that
around.
I feel like it's not like, oh, we could have both hidden in there and I was too scared to open it.
It's like I could have opened up the cupboard and been snatched too. Then we'd both be part of the drug cartel.
Exactly. Like, I don't think there was room for both of them. It's not like, oh, I was completely in the wrong here.
It's not like I shoved you towards them and
yeah,
ran
I
away
wasn't
myself.
like, oh, you were too slow, yeah, and I pushed you into their way so I could get away. Like, I mean, they could have swapped spots, but it's not like, oh, we both
swapped. But there's also the
both
risk
could have gone
that
away.
they could have been seen swapping. And
Exactly.
you don't really. There's no way to know.
There was no perfect solution. Exactly.
What would have happened? It would have been bad no matter what.
Mm-hmm. There's no easy out there.
It's just one of those scenarios that just like all around sucks. So, he basically does like a big apology and gives him back the harmonica, and Joaquin is just like, "You really think this is gonna change things? Because it's not." And Alejandro's just like, "I don't know. I love you."
Blam, 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 blam.
And then Joaquin's just like, I'm not giving you the land bag, loser, and then leaves. It was like a very Vanitas Kingdom Hearts 3 thing. And so then I expected Wilson, because it goes back to like Wilson present day. I expected him to be like, so Joaquin gave the land back the next day. Because I remember as I was listening to like the I'm sorry speech, I was thinking like, I really hope he doesn't have like an immediate change of heart. Because it doesn't seem very realistic. And like, I could have seen so many stories doing that, even though it's not realistic because it's a story. But I also just came off listening to 18-Yard Line, so
I was
I was
gonna
also
say, I
thinking of
just
like the
remembered.
realism in that episode.
I just remember I forgot to say, like, I liked how in the end Austin has like this begrudging, like, fine, I guess, I'll accept you being here for now, and it's like, so he decided to be, like, I still don't like you though, so
Yeah,
Baka.
we forgot to talk about that. I really liked that. Also,
Yeah, and Cooper's
I
like,
was
okay, cool,
cool.
thanks, if let me know if you need anything. He's like, I still don't like you, but
That was really funny, and also, if I was Austin, I
real.
probably would have shared the same sentiment.
Uh-huh.
But there's just something about that episode that did like the Glass Darkly thing so much better than a Glass Darkly.
Uh-huh.
Like it basically did the same thing, I would say, at the end, where it's just like, oh, we did this nice thing for you, but we're never going to tell you about
Yeah.
it because you don't need to know, because that kind of defeats the purpose in some ways. But it doesn't make you leave the episode feeling like trash the same way a Glass Darkly does.
Uh-huh.
I know there's like another episode that came out within like the last
Yeah, that we compared it
bit
to.
that
I
did
don't remember what it was.
that I don't remember where it was. But yeah, I feel like I don't know. I remember when I finally started to come to terms with the Glass Darkly as I got older, I was like, maybe there's just I don't know, a way they can't tell this story where I just gotta feel like trash when it's over. And then there's 2 episodes where I don't. And I was like, okay, never mind. I was right the first time. A Glass Darkly still sucks.
No, it's just because we dislike Dr. Hawthorne more than we dislike Austin McKinley, I think.
I mean, that too, but also just that episode, I feel
Like,
miserable
Austin is still
listening
like,
to
okay, like,
Glass
I don't
Darkly.
like you now, but I'm willing to, like, accept this stuff a little bit. I'll still rub it in your face, like, see, Enuma School would take care of me and stuff. But he's still more likable character than Dr. Hawthorne, who's like, I
He's a
still
more
want you
likable
to
character
die
than
and
Dr.
fail.
Hawthorne, but also, like, the rest of the Glass Darkly, I'm also miserable listening to the rest of that episode.
Well, that's fair, because the entire thing is unjust. None of it was Trent's fault at any point.
My favorite thing to come out of being a Jenny Nicholson fan is getting the phrase "an exercise in misery," because I've been able to use it so many times since first watching that OG, whatever the video is called.
I don't remember.
Like, Escape from Tomorrow, I think that's it. That's the video title. Like, Escape from Tomorrow is an
The
exercise
Disney
in misery.
one, yeah.
And that's also how I describe a Glass Darkly. But, so with this episode, though, I really expected Wilson to be like, and everything resolved. But instead, he's just like, so they didn't get the land back, and they just recently got the land back.
Because Alejandro
like, very
died.
recently,
Or Joaquin
decades
died.
later, however many years later, because Joaquin passed away. And did he pass away in a fight? I don't remember.
I think maybe
I think
earlier,
so.
like earlier on in the episodes, before we found out that they were brothers and stuff like that, I was like, at the end of the episode, Wilson's going to be like, and this jar of dirt is from Joaquin's grave, and that's but I forgot that I wrote that before finding out that it was like, oh, and he's dead
I think
now.
there was one point where I mentally joked to myself, like, Joaquin and Alejandro are, like, so at odds because they were, like, bitter exes, and then I found out they were brothers, and I was like, never mind.
Well, especially because of the telenovela drama-ness of it that you were saying. Yeah, so when we finally find out their actual backstory, I was like, wow, that's actually, like, horrific. Like, the fact that he was Hyde and that Joaquin was, like screaming and begging and scratching and pleading while he's being dragged away, and Alejandro had to, like, no wonder he has this, like, traumatic cowardice, because he had to just sit there and listen and see his brother being dragged away and then have his whole life torn up.
Something I forgot to mention, he, like, can't be around Joaquin. He, like, freaks out when he's near him and has to leave.
Like, I could see how both of them would
baby.
be so traumatically changed like that. Both of these episodes both dealt with such similar, like, oh, I'm, like, being traumatized in a way on both sides, and, like, unrequited forgiveness as a result of the trauma between people.
Yeah, and it's, like, a bad scenario, like I said, all around, because one is, like, you're being attacked and no matter what, people are going to get hurt, and the other one's football, so you're being attacked, and no matter what, people are going to get hurt. Um, but so when Joaquin passed away, in his will, it said he wanted Alejandro to get the land. So they started building the church, and then the dirt is from that church. And Wilson's like, so that's my story. And he looks at Lucia, and Lucia's like, that was a lot. And she's like crying, and I was just like, yeah, that'd be like a really intense story to hear. And just like the last episode,
it was not just dirt,
I forgot.
But it was also seeds from there, and it was like, send back dirt and seeds. And I was like how Wilson's like, Alejandro sent me these seeds of indigenous plants from the area so I can plant and introduce new invasive species to Campbell County.
Yeah, when he said that, I was thinking, like, do you have, like, the right... Like, I get that you're getting new soil, but do you have, like, the right environment, like, temperature thing for, like, these
I wasn't worried about that.
flourish?
I was like, I'm not worried about the plants not growing. I'm like,
I didn't even think about that.
You're just introducing species from thousands of miles away.
Yeah, they like eat all the other plants.
And vice versa. That is not something that you should do, but it's okay.
So you do you, babe. So Lucia is understandably shook because I'm here and I'm thinking, like, if someone just told me this story, like, I'm shook listening to the episode, like, and also just like hearing this story from someone else, when you just casually walk up to them and ask, like, hey, would you be interested in this charity thing? And then they're like, let me tell you this traumatizing story. And you're just like, oh my goodness.
I also couldn't believe how the story ended, because Wilson was like, and I just left immediately after that. And I was like, I can't believe he left after all that happened and then never got any follow-up until now. But I was like, I mean, what else could he do? Like, maybe he tried, and it sounds like this wasn't super long ago, since it was his last international trip before he settled down in Odyssey.
Like, since him and Alejandro were already pen pals, like, they would have consistently talked to
Yeah, I was like, I'm surprised you were like, yeah, all that stuff happened, I thought he was going to shoot him, and he was like, I don't forgive you. And then I left, and I never heard anything else up until now. And I was like, I can't believe you just left things like that. Like, nothing you could do, I guess, but still.
And then Wilson's like, and it was so awkward, like, secondhand awkwardness, I had to leave
the
and
country.
never see them again. So then, like I said, Lucia's understandably shook, and I was just like, it's okay, I'd be shook too. And she's like, I'm the one who gave that box with the harmonica to the boys in the Bibles. And I was just like, oh, honey. Could you imagine being like,
she scratched that inscription into the harmonica with the safety pin.
Can you imagine, like, I'm gonna give this nice little gift to these nice little kids, I hope they like it, and find out one of them got kidnapped and became a drug lord, and I was just, and then, like, just died, and now they're doing gardening and stuff, and I was just like, I would be so messed up if I heard that happened.
Yeah.
But, like, because so much time had passed, and I was thinking about, like, all the other crazy stuff that went down, just, like, 18-yard line, I totally forgot how the episode started. So I forgot about the money in 18-yard line, and I forgot about Lucia and the Magi boxes. Mm-hmm. In this one, I'm assuming Magi boxes are the charity of the month. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that happened.
Yeah,
Something I assume Lucia said to herself before she went to bed that night.
Yeah, the video doc has Bob and Puppet Bob, except it's a Spanish Puppet Bob, and Bob can't understand him, and it keeps on guessing incorrectly what he's saying, like Lopez. There's a cooking video for Gallo Pinto, and it's all in Spanish, and there's subtitles, but because the new AIOC site is so incredibly broken, it was like...
You're saying that like the old site wasn't broken.
This is 100 times worse.
Okay.
Here's the thing about the audio player on the web version is if you pause it, you can't hit play again because the play pause button just turns an infinite like thing, and so you have to like refresh the page if you want to unpause it.
If you want to listen to the episodes, I'd say do it on the mobile app.
Well, I'm just saying the web version is so bad, and the video version, I tried to make it less laggy by going into the accessibility things and turning off animations, but then when I hit play on the video, the screen was just black, and I was like, okay, turn that back on, but then there was still no video, and I refreshed it, and it's like, okay, now the video's playing, but there's two of them playing at once, and if I hit pause, it pauses one of the audio tracks, and so the video I'm watching is still going with the audio, and I just can't pause it, but also the time bar won't go away at the bottom, and it's covering up the subtitles. So I just had to guess at what everyone was saying because the whole video was in Spanish, basically.
And then your laptop started melting like Hideo Kojima style.
Yes. Well, yeah, because then partway through the video, it's like, also, by the way, you should close this web page because your computer's going to melt because it's using so much energy to have this page open for 5 minutes. And Bob talked about renovating his backyard, which is a follow-up to a video from years ago where he started renovating it in a different AIOC video and was talking about, like, pulling up weeds or something.
Oh, I think I remember you telling me about that. See, that's how you get yourself to stick to your gardening plans. Is you're like, in 2 years, I'm going to do an update.
Yeah. The one note I was missed that I haven't said already is the thing I was laughing at before, my very first one, which is, as depicted in the art, the very first conversation Wilson has in his story where he's at the gas station and then Joaquin and his cronies ride up and they were like, hey gringo, what are you doing and stuff. And Wilson is out here having the world's most stilted, awkward conversation that I have ever heard in my life.
Oh my gosh, I had like flashbacks to French wit when he was talking in Spanish.
This was like
he was just like, muchos gracias.
Wilson used to be a tough guy. He was a bully. He's out here on his motorcycle being like, hello, fellow travelers of the pavement.
It's because he's trying to be nice for the first time in his life. He doesn't know how to do it. Leave him alone.
He sees these guys who are very rough and rowdy on their hogs with their leather jackets. He's like, are you perchance part of a riding club with your bicycles? Your motorized bicycles? And I was like, what happened to you, Wilson?
He became preppy. Leave him alone.
I was like, it's like he's literally acting like Eugene in his like complete like social unawareness of how he's talking. I'm like, you used to be the tough guy bully. Like, what are you doing?
He
like,
was the jock, and Charlie did ballet. And he was the skater girl, and she said, see you later, girl.
No. Yeah, so that was like the most painfully awkward thing. And I was like, I find it hard to believe that even Eugene would be like have such an awkward conversation at this point. And you should be the best of us in terms of like being able to have a normal human conversation with these people. He's like, they are clearly in a gang. They're clearly making fun of you. And he was like, are you members of a riding club? I would love to
maybe he was pretending to be like a noob just so they wouldn't do something to him.
It was all putting on a very convincing act.
Yes, that's the only thing I'll accept. It did have like huge French wit vibes to me, though. I don't know if you thought of that too.
I did not think of that, no.
Because I was just like, why is everyone in your family so bad at languages? It's so bad. You're not even related, and you haven't even spent that much time together in forever. I like to think that like Wilson and Wit were just like so good in their classes, and then just like language classes, just like the lowest grades. Wit's like, I'm gonna write an encyclopedia. I don't need to be good at other languages, only English.
I mean, they grew up in like this small town, like rural South. I doubt they had like the most robust like second language programs probably.
What I want to know is why doesn't Wit have like a Scottish accent? Like, I get that
question,
his dad doesn't.
Is American.
His dad's American, but his mom and stepmom aren't. Why doesn't Charlie have a Scottish accent?
It's a good question.
I feel like that's a better question than why doesn't Wit have a Scottish accent?
I mean, to be fair, Charlie was like, what, like 6 when they came over to America, or 3 or whatever?
Yeah, but still, you would have that accent up until then.
You wouldn't have a super strong... You're already around like 50-50 or so, like,
I guess,
American people and Scottish, and then you're growing up. Most of your language development is then happening while you're in America now, so...
I feel like the fact that, like, Wit spent his childhood in England means he should be better at French. In Scotland means he should be better at French. I don't know if that makes sense.
I
guess
don't think it makes sense.
I don't know. I'm thinking of like languages they speak commonly in Europe.
Okay, but I feel like
I know
England
it'd be
doesn't
like
count.
more
England is
like
not notorious for
British
like, oh yeah,
people
everyone
being in
here speaks the
Scotland
second
than
language.
French people being in Scotland. I get that, but
Yes. Also, first I want to say big difference between Scotland and England.
no,
But
I
even
know that. I know
but
that.
even if he was English, I would say like, the English notoriously historically known for
Also,
loving the
yeah, can I
French
just
and
say, Wit's English as a kid shouldn't be as good as it is. I get that he like would bump elbows with Arthur Conan Doyle or whatever the
uh-huh.
heck, but
Yes.
like, I'm not over that. I'm still not over that.
Good, you
Every single
shouldn't be. It's
time
insane.
anyone says like I'm more willing to accept the fact that he met Arthur Conan Doyle than I am over the fact that Arthur Conan Doyle was supposedly happy that Wit enjoyed Sherlock Holmes, because that is a lie. That
It's
is
also
a
funny because
blatant
Wit was
lie.
like 2.5 years old.
Wit was 2.5, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was like, "This is the most sophisticated little gent I've ever met in my days."
And then he died 30 seconds later.
And then he died 30 seconds later out of sheer shame that Wit enjoyed Sherlock Holmes as a book.
Wit was the last person that Arthur Conan Doyle saw alive.
Can we say Wit murdered Arthur Conan Doyle?
It is possible. He caused the stress upon his heart that finally did him in. It's not the weirdest piece of lore from the Young Wit books, but it's certainly up there.
Honestly, it's one of the least weird pieces of lore, dare I say, in the Young Wit books. I can never listen to the episode The Jesus Cloth ever again. I feel like I want to listen to it again, though, but I have to listen to it again if you are also there, because I can't do it by myself. I don't have that much strength in me.
This is actually, it was part of the Jesus Cloth, but that's why Wit was like, we need to carbon date it. We need to burn it. He's like, I can't go through this again. We need to destroy it.
Before, but it's so true, though.
We need to destroy it.
It's canon. Phil Lawler told me himself.
Okay, this episode, Showdown in San Poco.
I liked the ending a lot. It surprised me in a good way. It was like a very, I'd say, bittersweet.
Probably should have seen it coming. I'm glad that it was like, he did make enough concession to leave you the land, but it wasn't, like you said, I'm glad it wasn't an immediate makeup, or even like, okay, he passed away, he didn't change his ways.
And it sounds like they never even talked again, as far as we know.
Yeah, I think they did say like, yeah, we never talked again, but
Which is
he
like
did.
So sad.
It is sad.
It's sad, but it had like kind of a nice ending in that he left him the land, but it's still very sad. Like I said, kind of bittersweet.
It was basically like, I can't personally, emotionally bring myself to forgive you, but I still acknowledge like that this is the right thing I should do, and so indirectly I am granting you this so I don't have to do it in person. I like getting more of these like Wilson stories. There was the girl who she had her dad in prison. There was the one that was in where was it, in New Guinea? Is that where it was?
The prison
Yeah.
one?
It was somewhere in Southeast Asia.
What was someone with the girl with her dad in jail?
That was a while ago.
I'm trying to remember what that one is.
And he was like, you have to forgive your dad for being a criminal. And yeah.
I'm not sure if I remember that.
I don't remember it super well. That's about all I got.
I think I
remember the art, and it's Wilson sitting at the jail, like, with her. It was a sermon, I think, that he was telling the story.
Yeah, I vaguely remember it.
Yeah. I want to say it was like 4 years ago or something in the AIOC.
It was definitely an AIOC episode.
And it was a while ago. Yeah, I like, just like the previous episode, I liked how seeing, like, you were put in a difficult situation, you being Alejandro. It wasn't necessarily your fault, but both of you came away traumatized in different ways, and now you have to deal with, like, how do you process this? How do you try and make things right? Dealing with what it means to not be forgiven by the person, but still trying to continue on. You know, I liked how it's not just like, oh, I'm traumatized by how bad I feel, but that it had this, like, cowardice impact where it's like, you know, I'm scared of confrontation stuff all the time because of this incredibly traumatic thing that happened to me, which I let for so long get in the way of being able to try and reconcile with my brother, because I couldn't give him back the harmonica and stuff like that or talk to him about it, even though he, you know, went through the objectively worse, like, physical real life stuff since then. But I can't bring myself, because I'm letting my own trauma get in the way of it, that I refuse to deal with until the end.
Did you give it a score?
No, I'm gonna say 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I think I'm also gonna give it that. This episode was really good. Wilson did make me a little bit crazy at the beginning, though. I was like, honey, talk better if you're gonna talk a different
It
language.
was so wild. I was like, what's wrong with you? Like, it was just funny because I'm like, I know you're, like, tough. You, like, infiltrated prisons and pretend to be, like, a prisoner and stuff. Like, you shouldn't be acting this awkward around people who are, like, clearly cartel members and acting so white about it. Like, I was like, he asked them if they're part of a riding club. I was like, is that even a phrase? I've never even heard anyone say that before.
It's slang for cartel, Devin. He knows all
Yeah,
the...
he's like, are
he
you
was
part of
talking
a
in code the whole
riding
scene.
club?
That's why it was so stilted. We can't tell because we can't see it. He was doing, like, hand gestures and stuff.
Uh-huh. Anyways.
It's called Wilson's Cool Code.
He came up with it with his friends in Providence.
Yeah. What friends?
He's like, Whit and Jack, they were my friends, right?
They were my friends.
They still like me. Yeah. That is everything for the September and October episodes. Some similar themes paired up for these episodes. What are we talking about next time, Victoria?
New album?
Buckle Up. Album 74. What are the first 2 episodes?
Game Night and Renée Renewed.
Yes, I'm excited, especially for the first one.
I'm excited mainly for the first one. I basically only have, like, 2 things to say about the second one. Maybe I'll come up with more.
I'm sure you will. Historically, we are known to come up with more things to say about things. Okay, until then, next time, that's all for now. Thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also known as Dr. Blackbird.
And I'm just a sleepy little guy.
And this has been the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. Goodbye.
Bye.